When we talked last week, obviously it was a not great day in the markets. Things seem to have rebounded this week. Talk to me about today's sale.
Today, so we had 6,700 cattle today, and they call it 10 to 30 higher. Some of them calves will probably be 40 or 50 higher, where there were some last week are 10 to 30, 40, 50 lower. But I'll tell you about the cattle we sold today. The calf would be a lot better than they've been being over the last 30 days. So some of those cattle, a lot more cattle in the mix on those lighter end of those calves, a lot of wean ones, a lot of good kind, a lot of farmer participation. But they deserve more than they did bring last week. But they was sure selling good today, especially a steer calf that weigh under 600 pounds. It's sure in demand today. But it's like I said, everybody's made some money, and they're going to spend some of it back on these cattle. So we sell 2 or 3 loads of 800-pound steers, weighed 818 at 370, real green, nice black yearlings. But it sure be higher straight through today.
When you look at a week like this, what sets it apart? What allows the market to bounce and buyers to bounce back after a scare last week? Concerns about what the plan is long term.
Well, we come out there a week ago Friday, and the board's down 9 1/4. We turn around there on Monday, and it's down $13.75. So everybody's out there, don't know what to do. We're scared to death on Tuesday that's going down another 13.75. Well, if it does that, we're down $35 103 days, and on any size of animal, especially a 700-pound steer, now we're down 230 or 40, $50 in 3 days, and nobody's got any idea what to do. We want to buy some cattle, but we don't want to get our head to clear off. There's so much stuff going around on social media about things that's going on the news. We need to get these beef prices cheaper, and and they're probably going to try to do something. What that will be, I don't know. But if you go down here to the local marketplace in our town and you want to buy 3 or 4 steaks, well, they might only have one, and that's consistent around the country from where I've been. I've been to Florida and California and everywhere else over the last 2 or 3 months, and it's just that it's not available. It's not there. So when we go to importing this beef, I don't care if it's from Brazil or Argentina or wherever else they want to get it at. We're still going to have a lot of trouble getting this high choice and prime beef, because we're actually the only ones in the world that's got it. And we can make hamburger, but and a lot of people's going to get it, or the government's going to give it away if they ever go back to doing business, which I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But at some point they surely will. But still, people's going to eat beef. That's the protein of choice, and that's what they're going to eat, pretty much like I am. And you got all these diets now that says the protein's good for you and beef's good for you. So a lot of people in these college kids, a lot of people in these New York City and in these big towns on the east and west coast and the south, they're going to eat what they think's good for them and what'll keep them in shape. So that's what they're going to do. So for the time being, for its domestic demand, we're in the driver's seat, and I don't see that changing very soon. So I'm not that scared of the market. It's going to have its ups and downs, but if everybody just be quiet and go back to doing business, we'd all be in good shape in about a week.
Jackie, talk to me about quality. What do you notice about these calves and these cattle that are running through the sale barn?
Well, we get cattle from a lot of big old area. We draw cattle from Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, and everywhere else, and a lot of local cattle, a lot of cattle north of here. The quality of the cattle varies a lot in Joplin, Missouri. We'll have one of the plainest ones you ever seen. We'll have some of the best ones that you ever seen. But it's just because of where we're located here, in southwest Missouri, a lot of those cattle travel up 49 highway going north, and a ton of them travel up I-44 going west. So those cattle just typically come by here. We got a really good market. We got really good facilities. We know how to handle the cattle and do things that they need done for them to put them in the best position that they can be as for marketing. So we'll sell one. It's not like going to the north here. We got one of every kind. We got the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I've always said this about them calves. Just like the school program, no calf left behind. So that's the way we operate here.
What are you hearing from producers in terms, is the attitude improved this week compared to last week?
Oh yeah, it's totally different this week, than it was last week. Everybody was scared to death. We lose all that money on the board. So the producers, they're out there calling me wanting to know what it's going to do. Well, I know a lot of people that's really smart, but I don't know anybody that knew what it's going to do, because if this where we're at, and from the high that we've been to, if you take those feeders up there at 370 or 80 and you take $30 a hundred off of them, that sounds like a lot. But that's 10%. Well, back when we traded for $1.50, and if you took 10% off, it's $15. So it's a scary situation, and it's scary for them because they got their livelihood out there. They've worked all year to raise those calves or background those yearlings. They got a lot of money tied up, and in this day and time, what it costs just to hang around and be in business and pay the bills that you got to pay. Well, $30 a hundred on a 5-way steer is $150 a head, and in a week's time, you can lose 15 grand in a week. That's a lot of money. So, they was very, very concerned. But it's the way the markets work. It's no different than any commodity market. They all work like that. They're up and down, and they reach high levels. They'll come down a lot in one whack, and when they're at low levels, they go up at a big, big whack, and we trade back and forth. And that's just the way markets work. And then from the level that we're at, they have big moves.